Why would I ever sell it?
I won't sell any Bitcoin.
We go the way of all fiat money, which is to 99.9% loss of purchasing power.
It means you better buy as much as you can now. They would pay me 15%. Could have retired on $150,000.
500 million of money goes to some place. They buy 500 million of Bitcoin. That's what's going on.
This is the Max Keiser playbook. I've been sharing this with everybody around the world for 10 years now. And a lot of people in the world who got into Bitcoin at $1, $10, $50, $100, except for Peter Schiff, who I told to buy it at $1 or $10 and he refused.
Oh no, he says you didn't tell him at $1, you told him at $10.
Right, but thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people around the world did. They're sitting on millions and millions of dollars worth of unrealized profits. And here's the thing, Stacy, I saw you were tweeting about, when are you going to sell it? And you're like, well.
Yeah, here's my opinion here. The smartest, wealthiest people I know got rich and stayed rich with a simple strategy. You create or you buy assets that are high quality, pristine assets. You hold them forever. And when you need cash to live, you finance them, you borrow against them.
The upside is virtually infinite because Bitcoin has no top. Why? Because fiat money has no bottom. I'm not going to sell it because I predicted going up to 500,000 or more, and I'm just going to use it as collateral.
Yes.
As borrow against it, and I can use it that way. Why would I ever sell it?
I won't sell any Bitcoin from here on out. There's lots of new platforms and services being offered for people in the Bitcoin space. So you can always just keep stacking and then borrow against your Bitcoin. And I do want to say, you can't say that Max didn't tell you so. That these people are coming, these corporations are coming, these institutions are coming. It was really triggered by Paul Tudor Jones entering the space back in the second quarter of 2020. And now we see Elon Musk and Tesla with $1.5 billion. We don't know how much SpaceX has bought, but presumably they also bought some for their treasury, but they don't have to, file that with the SEC. And, well, I'm going to show you a headline. I just showed it to you while Max was talking, so he didn't see it, though. I'm going to read it to Max. U.S. corporates hold record $2.5 trillion in cash to meet pandemic shock. So that's 2.5 trillion. So if they all do like Elon, how much is that? $250 billion worth of purchases coming. So even if half of them do it, that's 125. If 25% of them do it, it's like 75 billion. So there's a lot more money on corporate balance sheets where, that Tesla money came from.
Right. Look at the big picture here. There's $300 trillion worth of investable assets on planet Earth. That includes stocks, bonds, property, precious metals. How much of that is invested in Bitcoin right now? Less than 1%. So we're looking to do the Elon here, go 10%. That's $30 trillion right there. Bitcoin is still less than $1 trillion. So I figure that's how I come up with 40x from here. That's just a 10% allocation to Bitcoin. And of course, the thing is that we're going to see fiat money basically go the way of all fiat money, which is to 99.9% loss of purchasing power. So that 10% effectively becomes 50, 60, 70%. Again, there is no top to the price of Bitcoin because fiat money is a bottomless pit that loses for the past 300 years, 99.9% of its purchasing power.
Like I buy a football team and I hold it forever and I borrow, and I have a good banking relationship with a bank and they loan me money at 3% or 2% interest. I buy a city block in New York City. I hold it 100 years. And then if the Fed prints 10% more money or 5% more money, the building goes up 5% in value if it's truly desirable. If you have assets that are scarce, desirable, and unimpaired, they're not impaired. I use that criteria, right? Because like for 100 years, it was New York City real estate, and maybe New York's not the greatest bet this year. But football franchises, city blocks, if I had an unimpaired, Jeff Bezos held Amazon stock. Mark Zuckerberg held Facebook stock. So buy Bitcoin. Am I going to sell it? No. I'm never going to sell it. I'm never going to, here's two things I don't want. I never want a capital gain tax, and I never want an income tax, right? Okay.
Of course.
So what's the problem? If I buy an asset and then I'm trading on it and generating yield, I could generate 30% yield, but then I owe 15%, I owe tax on it, right? So if I had $100 million and I trade it, I'm taking a lot of risk. I generate $30 million in yield. I pay $15 million in tax. I have $15 million after tax, and I'm trading it, and I've got all this execution risk.
Right.
If I hold $100 million and Bitcoin goes up, you fill in what you think it'll go up. It's been going up 200%, but if it went up 20%, the number wouldn't, if it was 5%, the answer wouldn't be different.
No correlation right now between the price of a stock and the underlying fundamentals. And the reason I said gold, silver, and Bitcoin will crash when the vaccine will come out, I tweeted it's a good thing. Bitcoin boom beating gold and silver. What does that mean? It means you better buy as much as you can now. The train is moving, the dollar is dying, silver is still affordable for everyone. And as the dollar crashes, what counts is not price, but how many coins of gold, silver, or Bitcoin do you own? Since 1974, the US dollar has lost 90% of its value, and people still say to their kids, save money. You've got to be crazy. Don't save dollars because I don't trust the US dollar. And I just saved gold and silver and recently Bitcoin. And the reason is because of 1971, when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, the dollar became fake. So now that COVID has hit and they printed more money in 2020 than they did in the first 200 years of our country. And still people are saving dollars. You should be buying some gold, some silver, and you can afford it, Bitcoin. Silver today is a bargain. I mean, today is around November 15th, I think, or whatever it is. And I can buy a silver eagle for about 30 bucks. And everybody in the world can afford 30 bucks. But the average person has been conditioned to think about paper, fake money, fake dollars. At the same time, they're printing as much money as they possibly can. They give it to their rich friends. They don't give it to us. And then they print it, and interest rates keep going down. So in 1974, when I got out of the Marine Corps, if I had $1 million, which I didn't, I could put $1 million in 74 into a savings and loan, a bank, in a certificate of deposit, and they would pay me 15% on my $1 million. So a lot of people made a lot of money. They just put their money into the bank, and they're being paid 15% interest. So $1 million back in 74 was worth approximately $150,000. Now it's not a lot of money to retire on, but you could have retired on $150,000 in 1974. Today, I take $1 million into the bank, I might get 2%. So that means it went from $150,000 to $20,000. And after taxes, that $20,000 might be worth $15,000. In other words, since 1974, the US dollar has lost 90% of its value, and people still say to their kids, save money. You've got to be crazy. They're going to, now that the elections are over and all this, I don't care if it's Trump or Biden, they're going to have to print so much money just to pay for all of the social entitlement programs so people don't riot. They can't afford to have any more rioting. So they're going to print more and more money, and people are still saving dollars or yen or euro or pesos. Right now, you should be saving gold, silver, or Bitcoin. And the thing is in the year 2000, I started buying gold at $250 an ounce. And today it's worth 10 times that much, approximately. So I'm very happy with my gold. And silver was like $2 or $3 or something, and now it's worth 30. And the Bitcoin I bought, thank God I was buying it at 9,000. And today it's worth over worth over $1 million. But the reason for that has nothing to do with gold, silver, or Bitcoin. It has to do with the incompetence of the Federal Reserve Bank, or the corruption of the Federal Reserve Bank, the US Treasury, and Wall Street. So I'm not saying Bitcoin, and people get into what I call pissing matches. Which is better, gold or Bitcoin? Who cares? The question is, how much do you have? That's all that counts right now. Because the reason you buy gold, silver, or Bitcoin is for the same reason. If you trust the US government or the central banks, the Fed, and Wall Street, then save money. But if you don't, then buy gold, silver, and Bitcoin.
It can happen once in your life. This is it. You will never get a better chance actually to get a leg up in the world than to be early to the world's first digital monetary network. And you're going to miss this opportunity because you're worrying and freaking out over all these third order, fourth order, fifth order hypothetical, FUD concerns.
Now, I want to talk about the threats to Bitcoin, we're doing a SWOT analysis, the strengths, the weaknesses, and so forth. So the threats that are out there, people have written off Bitcoin thousands of times, but it's still around. What do you think about the tether situation, as well as quantum computing? And if there's some very strict regulations, maybe coming from the United States, which is the largest capital economy or market, if you want to call it that.
A lot of FUD in this industry. I've never seen so much FUD. I don't know. I don't know why. Like, for example, like people that buy $1 billion of Apple stock don't sit around saying, is Tether manipulating Apple stock price, or is the quantum computer going to destroy the Apple network? There's a lot of people in the crypto industry, I think, that are very creative that are coming up with these things. With regard to Tether, it's completely irrelevant. I can't even imagine why anybody would take it seriously. The people that are buying Bitcoin are wiring hundreds of millions of dollars of cash into an exchange, and they're buying Bitcoin. 500 million of money goes to some place. They buy 500 million of Bitcoin. That's what's going on. There are some people that wire 200, some money into Tether, and they use Tether instead of cash because they want to move it between Singapore or Malta or some offshore exchange. But it's really third order. And what does it matter that someone uses Tether, right? I guess the theory is something like someone's created an extra $20 billion of Tether and bought Bitcoin with it and is not backed. But that means that they're short the Tether, and if someone ever calls it back, they're going to come up with $20 billion and they're totally out of luck. I don't believe that for a heartbeat. I think that that's silly. So I thought I got some email and it just felt like it was a scammer. I feel like all the Tether FUD is like some kind of scammer distributing something. But there's no legitimate institutional buyer would even consider that. And I don't think they're even using Tether, right? In the US, they're not even using Tether to buy Bitcoin. And most of the demand for Bitcoin is coming from the US. It's just US dollars getting wired into exchanges to buy. What if central banks created digital currency? Well, the answer is that doesn't matter either. People are buying Bitcoin in lieu of central bank currency. They're not buying Bitcoin in lieu of Tether. And there's not any genie behind the wall that can conjure up $100 billion of Tether and buy Bitcoin and not pay it back. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Again, that's the same thing. The only people that pitch that are other altcoiners that want to somehow say that they're more quantum resistant.
Sure.
You think anybody that owns Amazon stock is dumping the stock because of quantum fears? You think anybody owning Google you think Sergey Brin is concerned about his Google stock because of quantum computers? I never met anybody on the planet outside of people in the altcoin space that talk about quantum attacks, and they talk about it all the time. And my conclusion is they're just desperately grasping at straws, looking for some way to criticize Bitcoin because they think that they've got a better quantum algorithm. But I think it's, if someone invented a quantum computer, 99.99% of all the stuff on Earth is not in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And it's all subject to quantum attack. I could pretty much create World War III and end Earth and life as you know it on the planet and take away anything from anybody if I have the mythical, all-powerful quantum computer.
Yeah.
Right? And first thing you're going to attack is probably like, wouldn't you just steal like $100 trillion worth of bonds and sovereign debt? Why would you bother to go after the stuff in Bitcoin if you really had the all-powerful computer? So it's kind of a silly thought experiment, but like, you really think a malefactor is going to get their own quantum computer, no one's going to find out, and that no one's going to do anything about it? I really feel like it's dudes in their garage that are making stuff up to try to sell, the 6,437th crypto project and get funding for it. And so, no, I think that's just as silly as the Tether FUD. I think they're both just random FUD from altcoin projects.
Just want to jump in here on this point of the threat of quantum computers and how the invention of one could deconstruct the Bitcoin process. This point is of significance to me, as when our small business was meeting to look at putting Bitcoin on our balance sheet, believe it or not, this was one of the main reservations that came up. After a lot of research into it, let me re-emphasize that if quantum computing was to happen, Bitcoin would be the least of our worries.
The real point is life on Earth as we know it would be threatened by the all-powerful mythical malefactor with a quantum computer. And the first thing they're going to attack is not going to be Bitcoin, right? But I just don't, Dr. Evil is not getting a quantum computer. And if Dr. Evil gets it, then, your Bitcoin's going to be the least of your worries. Well, it's just, there are better things to focus your time on. It's just a very creative way to get distracted, and it'll probably cost you a lot of money because you have the world's first thermodynamically sound monetary network. There's no reason why it shouldn't go up by a factor of 100, and you're not going to invest in it or take advantage of it because of your fear that 1,000 whatever years from now, or 100 or 20 or 10, Dr. Evil will get a quantum computer. So I would respond with the classic Bitcoiner response: have fun staying poor.